What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to Salty Runback, here to be your weekly intake of North American Developmental League of Legends. In the thick of November, we get a bomb dropped by Riot Games. Oh boy, we got our America's Tier 2 primer, and we are here to react to it. My name is Grapes, joined alongside Hawk. Hawk, it's an exciting day in NA Dev.
Yeah, it is, man. I feel like actually surprisingly timely news coming out. November has not even ended, and we're already learning things that are going to be happening in like January, February, and even beyond. So really exciting that seemingly Riot on top of stuff. There's a lot to talk about where we've basically gotten our whole primer for what we can expect in 2025. And yeah, like you said, it's a really exciting time.
Yeah, we've taken a quick look through everything, but we're going to react to all of it line by line together with y'all to make sure everyone here knows exactly what is going to be happening and what our thoughts are about it, because there's a lot of news that has been dropped regarding format, regarding teams for Tier 2 already here in November. Not Tier 3, though, just yet. We'll get into that in a little bit. Make sure you like and subscribe. Let's not waste any time, Hawk. Let's get right into this article here.
Well, we should also tell the people, maybe you want to like and subscribe or whatever, because the fans of Salty Runback might be having a good week this week. That's all I'm going to say. This might not be the only thing that comes out. So, you know.
Absolutely. Well, let's dive right into this one here. We're going to go straight to the article here, a live react to, of course, our America's Tier 2 primer. TLDR, what we're to expect and what we're going to be talking about. Hey, they kind of got the 5 headlines for us already in here, but they're going to be covering the promotion tournament, the Tier 1 guest slot, the Tier 2 leagues and teams, the 2025 format, residency, academy, and affiliate, the team policy, and of course the schedule. So we can get right into it. So it says, back in September, we shared some of our plans for the updated Tier 2 system in the Americas and how this revamped structure will streamline the path to pro. Remember, we talked about this in our episode a couple of months ago, but now we're excited to share more in-depth information about what fans can accept as we head into the 2025 season. So this first section here regarding the promotion tournament and the guest slot, I feel like we've already kind of gotten a good idea of what this is, but quickly going over it, there is, of course, the guest slot that right now belongs to Disguise, that they compete in the LTA as that 8th team. They, of course, have the ability to qualify for Worlds, have the ability to win the split. They function as a Tier 1 team, except at the end of the season, they will play in the promotion tournament against the top 2 teams from each Tier 2 league. We'll get into which Tier 2 leagues those are just right now. But the big thing here, of course, is that promotion into Tier 1, they grant guest teams from the LTA North and South access to the global revenue pool, which means that you will be getting some financial assistance, even if you're not that big boss, organization that's making all this money. If you're even a little bit more of a grassroots organization, if you're in Tier 1, you'll be able to have that support.
Yeah, which I know Disguised Toast has gone on record to talk on like offline TV content and stuff about the fact that running Disguised has been a bit of a burden, but he likes making kids' dreams come true and everything. So it's really good to see that, they're going to receive that full financial support. Yeah, I think everything here, not necessarily new news, but very exciting. The big one is that Disguised is the provisional team, which we've known for a little bit because of things like the, LCS EV leaks and all that kind of stuff. But still very exciting for Disguised. I think this is the very obvious choice. We've talked about this on the pod already. Also, I guess worth noting as well, this is the only provisional slot up for grabs. 100 Thieves is just no longer a franchise team, but their spot is not up for grabs, right? Yep. So probably worth talking about there as well. It's just Disguised that have to defend themselves, if you will.
Yeah, and the other thing in this little section right here, it also mentions that promotion will only be available once per year for our Tier 2 teams, which is a bit of a deviation from the traditional style that we've been seeing in the NACL from Tier 3 to Tier 2 over the last couple of years. I guess it just gives a team like DSG a little bit more stability, a little bit more time to grow as a unit as they progress throughout the year. But it did surprise me a little bit when I saw this announcement. I would not have been surprised to see 2 promotion slots, up for grabs, 1 per split, just because that's how it's worked before. But I'm interested to see how this affects what the Tier 2 structure is for next year, because it's kind of like a spring split doesn't matter situation if you're in the NACL. Winning it only matters for like, getting the glory and everything like that, which I guess was the case in years past.
Yeah, it still matters more than it used to at the very least because of the existence of promotion.
Yeah, it means you stay in the league for the opportunity to promote in the summer split. But in terms of, doing super well in the spring split, that doesn't have any implications for Tier 1 promotion.
I'm actually curious because I do think that this is like less competitive, right? Only having the one promotion each year. However, I do wonder if this is actually better for development and it encourages teams to actually stay together throughout the year, both for the LCS provisional team or the LTA North provisional team, and then also for Tier 2 teams, right? To then stay together, improve together, and really level up to be able to get that spot. Because I know something that we see, for example, in Tier 3 is the constant roster shuffling, right? Trying to grab a spot. There's always a couple of teams that just sort of crop up to try and sneak away with a bid to the next level. And so I wonder if this will actually add stability to basically say you're safe for the year, right? So for the year, let's see how well you're able to build up and, challenge the best or whatever, right? I'm not sure if that is like necessarily the thought process behind it, but I actually just wonder if that will be a byproduct.
It definitely does that for DSG.
Definitely for DSG. Yeah.
For two splits, you don't have to worry about, demoting or anything like that. That definitely changes your your ideas of how to roster build. And, there's some of that this guy's roster announced just yet. We don't know exactly what their full group of 5 is going to look like, but those 5 have the opportunity to play the winter split, play the spring split, without having to worry about their jobs necessarily being on the line. And I think that's good for that team specifically. But I don't think it's going to change much in terms of roster mania between spring and summer for the NACL teams specifically.
Yeah.
Because it's a similar situation to what happened last year, where the winner of spring split in NACL 2024, they didn't really win anything. They just got to win the NACL. So
yeah, that's fair. I wonder if it'll be slightly less I wonder if it would have been more if there was every split promotion, but I agree. I guess it probably won't be less.
Yeah. It's a lot of stuff that we kind of already knew, but just here to give our perspectives on this guest slot and what the format of this promotion relegation cycle could potentially look like.
First half of the article is mostly things that Riot had either already announced and said we'll give you more details about, or we just already knew about. It's more so the back end, like more the Tier 2 specific stuff that is new.
Yeah, we can jump right into it right now because just like the LTA, the Tier 2 leagues are going to be divided into 2 conferences. The top 2 teams in each of those conferences at the end of the summer split will play against the guest slot in that promotion tournament. So a 5-team promotion tournament in each the North and the South Conference. The North will consist of the NACL, which I think is going to be very similar to what it was before with the US and Canada, 10 teams. And then the LRN, which is kind of the Latin American North situation. Meanwhile, in the South Conference, we have Circuito Desafiante. I definitely butchered that. I don't know if you, as the
if Henrique or like Soph is watching this, I really apologize for what just happened on the pod here. Like, I'm not even going to attempt it, but
we got Brazil and LATAM South, so we could just do that. It is the same like group of conferences that participated in the Tier 2 Americas tournament just a few months ago. But it was the top 2 teams from the NACL and Brazil, as well as the 1 team from Latin America North and South. So the structure is kind of remaining the same. I believe that these Latin American conferences actually have maybe shrunk a little bit in size. I think they in years past they might have been more. I'm gonna need. I'm
actually not sure.
That,
yeah.
To guarantee it like that I'm saying that correctly, but all that to
Greggs,
say,
we really need to clip you saying Circuito Desafiante.
Maybe we don't.
I think we really do. We should also clip me just saying it and then be like, who did it better? No, I don't know.
Okay, this is the big news right here, though, as we can,
is the teams.
Unless you have anything to say, is the teams.
Because I think we also generally knew already that the overall like league format wouldn't be changing too much, but I think the big news is that we know the teams that are starting in the league. And you also might notice, if I scroll down a tiny bit more, there are some question marks, which is super exciting. That's like, in my opinion, the coolest part of this news, which we'll get into in a little bit, but like we can kind of go one by one. The teams. So all the, I think, expected suspects here returning in the NACL, with the addition of 1 new team and then 2 teams that we thought might come back maybe are leaving. because we knew, or well, we didn't know, but we could have assumed based on the new rules for academy teams or affiliate teams that FlyQuest challengers and Team Liquid challengers might disappear, which is now the reality. Which we can get into in a little bit. Not the same in Brazil, where there are still academy teams. So still slightly disappointing that FlyQuest and Team Liquid have gotten rid of those programs that I think definitely contributed to their success in 2024. But Grapes, ultimately not that surprising. The other teams that went away, AOE Esports and... Help me out here.
It was Disguised because
right, Disguised. Thank you. Yeah, so Disguised, obviously, that's another obvious one. And then AOE is sort of the only team that just decided to leave the NACL, and they're being replaced by Luminosity Gaming, which, as you have informed me, is a big CS team, ? So
yes.
That's pretty cool.
So I think Luminosity's been in esports for a long time, a lot longer than a lot of these other organizations in here. I had some friends that like used to play a lot of CS:GO when I was growing up, and they were, I don't know if they were big fans, but they would always talk about like LG as being this big team. Now
that I think about
cool.
it, they actually might have been at ALGS when I was there too, at Galen Center.
Potentially. It seems like I'm looking through the Wikipedia page right now.
Remember.
They're in basically every professional esports title except for League of Legends. I don't think they've ever done League. So it's very cool to see them in here. Their Twitter account has about 500,000 followers, which is bigger than any other brand that we have in here. It's bigger than any brand we have here in the NACL for sure.
Definitely.
Probably combined.
Definitely.
They're an organization that's been in Tier 1 esports in the past, and my theory is that and it was kind of confirmed by them on Twitter in a post that they had, is that their goal is to be in this league to make it into the NACL or to make it into the LTA. That is seemingly their sole goal. The head of Luminosity, Alex Gonzalez, tweeted, "We'll keep it short and simple. For the first time ever, Luminosity is entering League of Legends. We have one goal for 2025, and that is to promote into the LTA North." They also tweeted, "Roster announcement coming soon," which is interesting because I wasn't sure if we were going to get big roster announcements like in the near future, but I mean, soon it could mean a lot of things, but that does mean that maybe they're already thinking about it, and I have a feeling they're going to be putting probably the most money into their roster compared to the other 6 teams that we see here.
Definitely, especially because now the assumption too is that the other contender is Dragonsteel, which obviously they're kind of a special case, right? So yeah, that is super interesting here that Luminosity is investing. I mean, I love to see that. I'm hoping their foray goes better than Natives did last year.
Luminosity, much bigger org than Native.
Definitely bigger.
So,
But this is super exciting. I'm excited that this team's coming in. Everybody else, again, sort of expected. And then we have 3 slots to fill that are currently unfilled as well, which we can get into in a little bit. Grapes, unless we have anything to add specifically on the team's front. I have one more thing, which is Winthrop University should, from my understanding, be playing as Winthrop University this time around. Their spot, even though they were playing under the Winthrop banner in 2024 summer, was not actually owned by the university. I do believe they should be playing under the official Winthrop banner now, though. So it was sort of weird for 2024 summer. There was a whole slew action, drama, all that. But I do believe that this will be Winthrop University and, Dragonsteel as presumably Maryville playing in NACL 2025.
I hope so. That would definitely make sense as, universities. It also is a good sign that, universities still allowed to compete in the NACL. I know that was something that was potentially up in the air when that first announcement came out. There's more about it a little bit later in this article. But last thing I want to say is I'm a big fan of all 6 of these organizations and what they have done for the league or just for esports as a whole. The one that we haven't seen too much of is CCG, but they've been around for a little bit, and they're still actively competing in things like ACL, and they seem to have a very big motivation on
all these
being
orgs
in NA
have
esports.
Been proactive throughout 2024.
Yeah, and so I think in general that's a good thing, and so excited to watch what exactly things look like, especially with some of these other open spots. We can scroll through some of the other teams in here a little bit. As you noted, academy teams exist not only in CBLOL, but actually also in the LL North, as you see Lion Gaming Academy as the team that is the representative from the LTA North proper. They're going to have an academy team, it seems like, as well as Fuego, who competed in, of course, that America's Tier 2 tournament. And then some other teams that I believe were actually just like in the Latin America Tier 1 region before, Infinity being one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I have not really much to say other than I do think it's cool that Leon has an academy team. And Fuego coming back. I think, teams that did not qualify for their Tier 1 spot or whatever, going to tier 2 is going to be a trend throughout all these next announcements. Because also if we go to CBLOL, so we have Red Canids Academy and Vivo K-Stars Academy. This is super cool. I know Coach CL has been huge about development with Vivo K-Stars. I think them retaining their academy team is awesome. Obviously, we just saw them at America's Challengers as well. They did not win America's Challengers, right? They lost to Pain Gaming, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. But we obviously just saw them, so I'm really happy that they're keeping their academy team. Interestingly, Red is, Pain is not. I just find that interesting, considering Pain won America's Challengers, right? Or no?
No, they won. They beat Fear.
They did beat Fear. Sorry, God, I'm so cooked. Okay,
it was a while ago.
Yeah, Pain did beat Fear. Yeah, so Pain doing away with that, but Kaboom and Los Grandes, who have apparently rebranded just to Los, moving down from CBLOL to the Tier 2 level. And then in addition, longtime fans of the CBLOL might recognize Flamengo coming back to get into Tier 2, which I think is pretty cool. I'm pretty sad about Kaboom. They are one of the bigger brands in Brazil, moving down to Tier 2, but obviously still going to have their opportunity to play for a spot in summer or 2026. And then, Los, Flamengo. And then I'm not as familiar with Rise, Tropa, and IDL. I do believe Rise has been knocking around in the Tier 2 Brazilian space for the last few years, if I'm not mistaken. So they have been around, just obviously not at the Tier 1 level.
I think the big thing, again, is just seeing these teams are still, even though they didn't get accepted into the Tier 1 region, they're still excited and wanting to remain in League of Legends esports. And I think that's a very cool thing. Hopefully that means the brands around the NACL continue to grow, and like the hype and excitement for the broadcast and for these games still remain pretty big.
I'm going to be honest, to me, Brazilian Tier 2 looks like it's going to be like the healthiest and most thriving space. It seems like everyone still kind of wants in. Obviously, we gained luminosity, which is great, but otherwise it was like the usual suspects. Whereas here, I think this is actually, if I'm a CBLOL Academy fan, I'm very excited about this landscape for Tier 2 and what that's looking like.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Latin America South, we really don't know much about them. The only team is WAP Esports,
baby.
And they were the team that made it to America's Challengers, so it seemed like nobody else. We'll see what exactly that looks like, but I think it gets into the bigger part of this general announcement is that there were a lot of question marks, and so it seems like, hey, did Riot just not find enough partners? What happened here exactly? Yeah. Well, it seems the answer is that potentially this was an intentional decision.
This is crazy.
It says that here, to finalize the remaining qualifier teams in every league, we will host a one-time qualifier tournament for each league to start the next year. We'll share more information about the schedule, format, and how to sign up in early 2025. This
is the bombshell. This is the big
free for all.
Yeah.
Everybody gets to go in. Every org can enter. Only, for NA's sake, 3 will come out. But the 3 that come out will be in the NACL as full-term members, not even having to play in a promotion tournament or anything like that. This is a huge opportunity for teams who still want to get into Tier 2 and by proxy have the opportunity to get into Tier 1.
Yeah, this is so cool, dude. Worth noting, this is at least allegedly, I guess we'll find out next year if it's true, allegedly this is 2025 only. So once we get, the 10 teams or the 8 teams in the case of Latin America and this tournament out of the way, we're not going to see this qualifier tournament again. So we get this one-time start of 2025, all these question mark spots up for grabs. 7 in LATAM South, 2 in Brazil, and then 3 in each LATAM North and the NACL, which is so cool. I am really, really excited for this. We're assuming... well, we don't know what the format's going to be. I know, Grapes, you and I are really hoping for like a big double elim tournament where, you know, theoretically like lower finals is what you need to get to be able to qualify for specifically the NACL, with 3 spots being up for grabs. I mean, this is like, dude, we just get an extra fun tournament basically to start the year. How fucking cool is this?
Definitely. And I really hope it helps, you know, deliver the hype as well.
Like, there's probably going to be some rosters in these tournaments too, you know, like because, people that really want to get there.
You know, also with only, you know, it was announced in that September article that NACL will only be happening in the spring and the summer split. That means that there's not going to be, theoretically, there won't have to be roster locks for these NACL teams, the 7 that already exist.
Right. Which is why it's crazy that Luminosity is already cooking, by the way, because they don't start until March.
So... technically, like that could mean that some NACL teams don't have rosters finalized just yet, and maybe they use this as like a scouting period. My guess is that they're going to want to try to lock up at least some talent before this tournament starts. That way, you're not like picking from the scraps of people who didn't make it afterwards. That's just my
think
theory.
This encourages roster building now for NACL teams because, yeah, you don't want to let fucking Bradley go and qualify, you know, for NACL through this, right? You want to get him on your team. So
and it's even a much simpler operation because there's no promotion tournament.
Right. You don't have to play against someone defending their spot.
Yeah.
You just get to go.
And maybe we're looking too much into the wording here, Hawk, but I also see one-time qualifier tournament, not like qualifier season, which makes me think it's not going to be like a fully fleshed out season like we've seen in NACLQ over the last couple of years where it's like 2 GSL tournaments that you generate points. I think it's going to just be a tournament, and I hope that adds a lot of excitement, adds a lot of hype. And I'm really hoping, this is my plea to, like, if you're an organization or an influencer or somebody who has, you know, any ambition of being in the LCS, this is absolutely your opportunity to buy in.
This is it.
Get a roster that's good. You know, there's so many people that would love to help build rosters for you. You know, maybe we're included, maybe not. But, like, in terms of just, like, finding some players that are going to be down to play together, 3 spots in the NACL are open, like, right now. You're not going to have to, like, you know, go through this whole long season. You're not going to have to take out an NACL team and replace them. It's just
win.
A race to the top.
Just win,
and that, I think, is very exciting.
Dude, the salty runners are about to run this town. That's all I'm saying. No,
I don't know.
Dude,
I don't know if we can pay. I don't know if we have the budget for that just yet.
I am so... Grapes, I think it's fair to say, I think this is the coolest thing in the entire announcement and the thing that kind of came out of nowhere. And I'm going to be completely honest. I think this is absolutely Riot making the best of a bad situation, but I actually applaud them for this a lot because I bet you all these open spots are just because they couldn't really find anyone. You know what I mean? And that sucks. But I think it's really cool that they have audibled to this game plan.
Yeah, it could be like, oh, they didn't find anyone, or maybe they found like too many people, and like
that's
they just
also
like
possible.
Didn't want to narrow it down. And I think this adds another level to that.
Yeah,
so,
I just think
really
this
cool.
is super cool, man. I am very excited. I hope that every game from this tournament is streamed. If it's not, Grapes and I are gonna have some thoughts about that. So
it also means that there's gonna be something happening.
In January.
In the landscape January, February. I mean, we were very worried about that not being the case when that first announcement dropped.
So this is hype as fuck, and you know, as the tier 2, tier 3 guys, we're gonna be all over this. So keep your eyes out for the 2025 qualifier tournament. It's gonna be sick.
All right, let's move on to the format now. As not necessarily having the information for this qualifier format or what tier 3 necessarily looks like yet. They have mentioned early 2025 as when we're going to get more information. Hopefully sooner. It seems like that's going to be their timeline.
We're coming up on like Riot holiday break and stuff like that as well. You all have to remember. And Thanksgiving, of course. So
yeah. So not super hopeful on that, but we do have formats for Tier 2, which is exciting. It says the Tier 2 season will be structured into 2 competitive splits, each focusing on different aspects, with promotion tournament taking place after Split 2. Split 1 will be a pure fearless draft. It seems like this is going to be a pretty similar format to 2024. A single round robin fearless best of 3 regular season, with the top 4 or 6, depending on the region, qualifying into a double elimination bracket. I believe that NACL had 8 teams qualify last season, so this is going to be a little bit of a stricter cutoff this time around, but relatively similar to what we saw last year in terms of structure, which was fine.
Yeah. I think it's fine. Important terminology to note as well. It says split 1, split 2 for Tier 2. This coincides with the pro level split 2 and split 3. So that's just an important distinction for everyone to note as well. Yeah. Split 1 is just we should say split 2 and split 3. I feel like this is kind of actually maybe something Riot should have thought about a little bit more in the article, but regardless,
yeah.
Regardless, the split, the first Tier 2 split of the year is basically exactly what we had last year. I think this format was great. There has been pushback against Fearless though, so as you can kind of see, it's not all Fearless all year. And just like the LTA, I think we're sort of throwing shit at the wall. We're going to see what sticks in terms of formats. And that is this end of year split as well, with the path to promotion tournament, as they're calling it. And it is very much a tournament of these grapes. I think the big thing that sticks out to me, the regular season is only single round robin best of 1. However, the playoffs are going to be really intense with big time double elim. And then, of course, we'll have the promotion tournament after the fact with the top 2 teams from both NACL and LATAM. So, LATAM North specifically. So, this one I'm really intrigued by because it's going to be a 14-team double elim bracket. This is very proving grounds to me. In fact, yeah, it is actually very proving grounds core.
I think
it's a little smaller. But
I think it's just I don't think there's crossover. I think it's just 8. I think it's just an 8-team bracket for NACL and
is it
a 16 bracket for LATAM? I believe.
Oh, maybe you're right. Oh, dude, that's such a bummer. But no, yeah, I think you're right.
Because
actually.
8 plus 6 would be 14. That's like a weird number. I think it's.
No,
it's
you're
just
right. You're right. It is
the
6
finalists.
and 8-team double elim.
Yeah.
See, but then this is weird. Why are we playing single round robin best of 1s for just an 8-team double elim? That seems so truncated.
That is true. That the way that they are phrasing it is that it is a shorter regular season to focus on a more expansive double elimination playoffs, but the more expansive double elimination playoffs is the same as what happened this summer and already existed with a single round robin best of 3 in the regular season. So definitely means the splits are getting shorter, which is that kind of downsizing in disguise that we've talked about over the last few months regarding Americas and everything like that, which definitely is not ideal. But I do think an 8-team double elimination bracket plus the prospect of a promotion tournament at the end of the season, these teams are going to get their games. I do wonder if something like a GSL group stage or a double round robin group stage individually would work out a little bit, would make more sense or be more entertaining, or just allowing these teams to get more reps even, because it seems like there's not a lot of opportunities for a team to prove themselves in that regular season before 2 teams are asked to go home.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I'm not thrilled by this second format. Because also, in the presumably both splits should be the same length. This first split here is single elim best of 3. And okay, it's only a 16 double elim bracket. And that's the sacrifice. But I think, rather have still a a double elim, or sorry, a single round robin best of 3, and then a 6-team double elim bracket. I don't see why we need to expand the double elim bracket by just a couple of teams at the expense of so many regular season games. That seems like such a bummer to me. So yeah, I'm really not sold with this second format, if I'm being honest.
We'll see how it feels. I could definitely see a world where having the expansive playoffs is more entertaining. It is important to note, actually, I just realized that in the older format for this summer, there were teams that got immediately slotted into the lower bracket to start, right? So it's going to be, I believe, a slightly different format. Is that right? I'm gonna double check.
No. It's because it was 8 teams, so they just all played each other at the start, and then you go down if you lose.
Summer playoffs. I feel like I remember.
I feel like that was an LCS.
Yeah.
We had 6 teams with some starting in lower.
This summer, Dragonsteel and Fear both got buys, and they stuck Winthrop and Disguise straight into the.
Right. We did like a whole Salty Runback episode about that. Yeah, you're right.
So slightly more expensive. Hey,
I did actually
2 more
like
series.
that. I did kind of like
great.
that too. Yeah, you're right. Okay.
So we get 2 more best of 3s in this situation, which whatever. Also
at the
interesting.
Expense of the entire regular season, though, unfortunately.
Yeah. Last interesting thing about like the format specifically is that there's going to be no Fearless Draft in Split 2. This is to make sure that teams are prepared for that promotion tournament because, of course, that will not be in Fearless format as the LTA teams will all be participating in Standard Draft. So,
which is fine.
There's arguments for developmental perspectives on Fearless versus not. I think having both is actually relatively interesting, and I'm excited to see what that looks like because what I've realized after watching Worlds is that you can get a lot of entertainment value out of like non-Fearless draft. There's a lot of really fun things that can be done still. You think about FlyQuest versus Gen G, for example. So I don't think we're necessarily losing entertainment value. It's just a different way to play the game.
And I definitely have always agreed with the sentiment of like having a best of 5 series meta. You know what I mean? Definitely cool. So yeah, I'm down with it. Like, I mean, that was so pervasive in the T1 BLG finals, like the series meta. So yeah, the last thing I'll say too, in defense of the second format, I'm also down with it. We don't see the bracket right now, right? So we don't know how many best of 3s and best of 5s there's going to be. But if the shorter regular season for the second split means not just more teams, but also more best of 5s as opposed to best of 3s, I'm probably okay with it. So yeah, but let's move on to promotion tournament, Grapes.
Yeah, it was mentioned or discussed in that earlier article, but here's another look at the bracket. It says that the top 2 teams from each of the regions will make it in, as well as the guest slot seed. And then they have a little thing here that says competitive splits will offer open opportunities for new organizations to also vie entry into Tier 2, with every Tier 2 league including an open qualifier tournament, creating a direct path all the way from amateur competition to Worlds. This also means that the lowest performing Tier 2 teams each split will need to defend their spots in Tier 2 promotion tournaments, and of course, more information later this year.
Basically,
no
change next year. There.
Yes. I imagine it's going to be bottom 2 against like top 2 or top 4 or something. They're very vague. They're being very vague about like what this. They're not calling it Tier 3. They in zero part of this article do they ever say the words Tier 3?
And they hardly mention it at all outside of the separate qualifier tournament. Like we don't really have an idea of what we used to know as Tier 3 is going to look like.
Yeah, and my thought is that could mean that things look very different, which I'm not necessarily an opponent of. I think that we had I think it just depends on a nice system. Yeah. If it's a better format, like I'm all game for it. So that's not much new. This is the bracket, of course. Interesting that the 2 seeds like have to face off against each other immediately at the start, and so only one of the 2 seeds actually like technically makes it in, and then it's a more standard best of 5 promotion bracket with that elimination.
I feel like there was one of 2 things that could have happened. One being sort of like the NACL system where the guests, because they say the guest slot gets an advantage. The advantage is that they get to play like theoretically the worst team, right? And then one of the 2 seeds has to immediately go lower bracket, like off rip. And then it seems, oh wait, no, they just get eliminated.
Yeah, there's nothing there. It's just a play-in stage.
So being a 2 seed is definitely a big disadvantage, because then you have to play the LTA team. But of course, if you make it to that game, you go lower bracket, and then you go from there. I feel like the other way that they could have done it, just sort of spitballing, would have been to have like 1 seed play 2 seed and then 1 seed play 2 seed, and then the guest slot team, the LTA team, actually gets a double bye. But maybe that would have been too good. Anyway, I'm like fine with this tournament. It does mean though, I do think the guest slot seed does not have like much of an advantage other than like they're theoretically playing a slightly worse team, but that's like really it. So it's going to be like jury out. Like this is a full on basically 4-team double elim bracket.
Yeah, which I think adds to the appeal of being in the NACL/LRN, where if you have a team that's good enough, like it'll be very like if
You
you
can
know
do it,
you
yeah.
have if you have a big enough budget, because obviously there are definitely LTA teams operating on a lower budget. You can build there's definitely a
You can
situation
build a roster
where a
that can
team will be
compete.
built that's better
Yeah.
than Disguise. Also interesting that there's no advantage in this. The winner of the winners bracket doesn't have an advantage over the losers bracket champion for the promotion match, which is always a topic of conversation, especially when it's for something like this. I wasn't necessarily expecting that though. I know in other promotion tournaments it's like 2 spots are up for grabs, and so the winner of the winners bracket automatically moves on, and then you have like this other winner making it. If you only have 1 spot, there's no clean way to have it this not be.
I mean, ultimately, the advantage is like, people argue like, oh, more stage games, whatever. But also, like, if you go to the lower bracket, you're risking just fucking losing, right? So, yeah, that's your advantage, is that you just don't need to win as many games, man. Like, I think it's fine. I know that's always a topic of conversation. I personally, I wouldn't say I don't care, but I don't think I have the strongest feelings about it, so I'm not too pressed.
Yeah.
Chris, we can keep it moving because we're talking about having money. Residency policies are here. So mirror those of tier 1. This is super interesting. Everything is changing. So each team can have 2 imports and 1 other America's region player. This is huge because this means, for example, if you're Luminosity and you want to qualify for tier 1, you can just put together an LTA team in theory, right? And try and qualify that way. Will that happen? We don't know, but I think this is super, super interesting. Arguably worse for development. Well, definitely worse for development, I would say, but that is what it is. And I do think it makes sense given that you're directly competing, trying to mirror for that next level, Grapes.
Yeah, when you say worse for development, it means that there are less spots available for younger, more inexperienced players potentially, which we knew was kind of going to be the case, especially with the priority being winning. However, as we mentioned before, there are definitely ways for rosters to include rookies and still perform really well. Like we see in the LCS, you don't necessarily pick up a roster of 5 veterans and have them go all the way to Worlds, as a team like C9 definitely showed this past season, whereas a team like 100 Thieves had a couple of rookies on their roster and made it all the way to the World Championships, I should say. So the import part is interesting. Again, it really incentivizes having money in the region and investing in rosters. Yusin absolutely has to be playing in this league next year if he wants to.
If Yusin's not playing,
like that's all I'm gonna say.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Dude, we should have like a build your ideal NACL roster with these new rules.
Here's the thing. Like, these rules don't necessarily only apply to a team like Luminosity, who could potentially import a team over from Korea. If you are Blue Otter or you are Supernova or something, you have a smaller budget,
why
but
not take
still
a
want an import spot. Yeah. There's not a lot of cheap imports necessarily that would be available. Yusin probably would be one of them.
Right, exactly.
He's still already here.
Yusin, Yuji, Shogo potentially, right? Like, I do think Shogo will be playing with Ole Miss, so he's probably off the table in the qualifier tournament. But dude, this is like, I mean, okay, let's do this. Let's do this thought experiment. Like, Yusin, Yuji are like guaranteed pickups, right? If I'm a GM, those are my 2 imports. I get like Pro Delta from CBLOL Academy, and then a fucking mid laner and an 80 carry. Like, give me Lens and give me like Lens or Jerry, but Jerry's probably playing on Dragon Steel. Give me Lens and give me Shochi, okay? And that's my team. Or Bradley. Like, that team could fucking make LTA. Yusin, Yuji,
totally
Bradley, Lens, and Pro Delta.
That you're just using the maximum, and it would be relatively cheap too, which is
right. Like, dude, that's my team. That's what I want.
You could say like, hey, why don't we just like sign Spica or sign like Otoamne, bring him over from Europe or something like that. Like, if you're a team like I think
the only team that would do that would be Luminosity,
or a team coming in through that qualifier tournament. So.
If they have money, I mean,
there's a chance that maybe some
watching
money
Odo play in the qualifier tournament is that would be a fever dream, bro. Imagine we're like casting the qualifier tournament, and we're like, it's like Odo Wamne against fucking like Reppy, like
that'd be good. Also, some other stuff in here is that given the introduction of the Tier 1 guest slot, we're updating our policies for Academy and affiliate teams. For Academy teams, they can be operated by Tier 1 organizations. They are allowed to compete in the Tier 2 regular season and playoffs, but they cannot qualify for the Tier 1 promotion tournament. That is
this
the
is not
biggest
surprising.
thing. A team like Vivo Cade Stars Academy that's in the CBLOL or the lower Tier 2 system will not be able to promote. But it also says to balance this, Academy teams cannot be relegated. Each Tier 2 league is limited to a maximum number of Academy teams, which is not necessarily specified, but there is probably conversations with different organizations, specifically in the LTA South, in terms of like maybe other Academy teams wanted in but weren't accepted. And then it also says, in the event that Academy teams finish first or second in the Split 2 playoffs, the next highest placing non-Academy team will qualify for the Tier 1 promotion tournament.
Yeah.
This means, Hawk, that there was no restriction on FlyQuest or Team Liquid challengers making their way back into the NACL if they wanted to. They just didn't want to.
Which is a shame.
And we do have some thoughts from both PapaSmithy and Spawn that we can actually maybe just take a look at right now. I sent both of these links to you. We could pull up PapaSmithy's first, as he had like a tweet. The video I haven't watched from Spawn just yet, but maybe we can take a break, watch it really quick, and then react to it. But here's the tweet from PapaSmithy, and in general it says that he's disappointed that FlyQuest will not be involved in the NACL, but with the change to the promotion system, Riot deciding that LTA-owned Tier 2 organizations cannot promote, he argues that they're put in a scenario where LTA teams in Tier 2 overnight became least desirable for players. His logic is that if you are a Tier 2 player, why would you want to be a part of FlyQuest where you can't promote when you can be a part of another team and have the opportunity to promote? Specifically, veterans he mentions as being people who would be less likely to want to play for FlyQuest because you'd rather just try to be on a team that can promote. And he says any 2025 NACL roster will be constructed when promotion at all costs, with significant financial upside to the team that are not afforded to FlyQuest. I can understand the arguments that he's bringing up, but I have two big things that I'm not necessarily agreeing with him for. Number one is that there are definitely going to still be teams that would want to play for a team like FlyQuest or Team Liquid Challengers, in my opinion. I mean, I haven't spoken to players, so I don't know specifically.
If I can cut in here, I feel like it depends on whether or not a player's goal or like highest desire would be to qualify themselves to the LTA or job security, because I do think that's a really underrated part of, or something that PapaSmithy does not acknowledge, that like, for example, playing on FlyC would provide.
Yeah. That is true.
And it would probably be higher paying than most of the teams in the league.
Yeah. And you mentioned that, that job security and things like that. You also have the opportunity to be a direct line to promote into FlyQuest if something, doesn't go right.
And
so
I will say, I believe teams like FlyQuest and like Team Liquid will probably still do good faith scouting towards Tier 2. It just means it won't be in-house anymore, which is like a bummer. But I do believe that a team like FlyQuest will do their due diligence and still watch all the Tier 2 teams, even if it's not their own. But I do agree. There is incentive to be in-house with the top dogs, and that kind of goes away.
You also, can really structure your roster very differently than the LTA teams, than some of the other independent NACL teams are, because your incentive for this roster building is so different. Exactly. And so you have the opportunity, 100 Thieves Next, for example, was a team that hired a lot of rookies that PapaSmithy was a big part of. Obviously they were at the top of their game in Tier 3, but if you have a roster like that with you put together a bunch of rookies, have them really be in this professional environment, I still definitely think that there's value there. Obviously at the end of the day, Papa and FlyQuest eventually kind of said that they didn't think that investment was enough. I would have really loved to see it exactly, especially with how roster building strategy could have been different, and how we could have seen potentially different people or different iterations of rosters being put into the NACL to compete against maybe some of these other more traditionally built ones.
To poke one more hole in Chris's argument here, which I think overall he actually brings up some good points. I don't want to shit on him. You know what I mean?
I definitely see the argument.
I think he's saying good stuff here. And I think the overall point of people might just want to promote is pretty real. I will say this kind of first part here of like new rookie players will be seen as risky choices. Like, is that not the benefit then to FlyQuest keeping their team? Because then you can make those risky choices. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I think there's some things I disagree with here. I think he brings up some good points. At the end of the day, it is what it is, right? They're not having their LTA team or their NACL team, and that's how that is.
Yeah.
So
and it does say that given this new paradigm, I'm focused on evaluating the best ways for FlyQuest. Blah blah blah. Basically, they're going to be partnering with an NACL team to share resources, and hopefully that ends up being good. He says, please continue to hold FlyQuest and myself to high standards, and we definitely will be doing that.
And I do believe, like I said, I think a team like FlyQuest and a GM like Chris, they're going to scout tier 2 in good faith still, and they might still promote players. So I do believe that.
We now have the video from Spawn of Team Liquid explaining his decision to have Team Liquid challengers not involved in the NACL. Let's listen in.
Hey everyone, it's Spawn here, head coach of Team Liquid Honda.
Shout out for taking the time to make a video, by the way.
For the tier 2 of our league.
Someone judge his reading choices.
2025 season. As I'm sure you've all seen earlier this morning, Team Liquid Honda will not be participating directly in tier 2 of the LTA. Now, why is that the case? There was a change brought in for tier 2 that meant that if you are participating in the LTA directly, you can't promote. This is something that I think would inhibit our ability to attract the kind of talent that we're looking for in tier 2, as well as just not very fair to the players if they are working with Team Liquid Honda. I think that a lot of the players out there would be fighting for that direct promotion spot into the ecosystem, as it is so many of their dreams. Now, obviously, we are still really passionate here at Team Liquid about tier 2. Players like Yon and APA came directly from our academy program and have seen great success over the last 24 months in the LCS program. And not only, Yon and APA, but other players like Armeo, Ayla, Bob Jenkins, Dokla were all at some point within our tier 2 ecosystem. This is something that I coach directly, so obviously I care a lot about. However, the news is still very fresh, so we haven't figured out exactly who that partner is. However, what we will be doing over the next couple of weeks is identifying that partner and building with them a program that utilizes our great partnerships in SAP and the Alienware Lab, as well as the coaches we have here at Team Liquid, to be able to throw our support behind another organization that is going to participate directly into tier 2. This allows us to have a great pipeline of talent that we believe in, as well as allowing the players that flexibility and freedom to be able to promote directly. We haven't got all of this ironed out yet. However, over the next couple of weeks, we're hoping to make some more strides. So stay tuned and I'll provide updates when I can. Thanks a lot for the continued support. And as always, let's go Liquid.
All right.
So pretty good video, if you ask me.
Pretty good video.
Like, honestly, he said a lot of the same things that PapaSmithy did, just less. You know what I mean? And I'm actually now having listened to Spawn talk and seeing them both kind of be on the same page, seemingly, the coach and GM of the two different teams. I'm wondering, Grapes, if they actually talked to some players.
That's what I was going to say.
And like the sentiment from players is that they would want to promote directly in, and that, the security of, say, a Team Liquid Challengers is not what they would necessarily be after, which if they did that, I mean, absolutely hats off to them. They are the kind of guys that would have talked directly to players and found that out. So super interesting. I think that's kind of my takeaway, actually, is that. And then, of course, Team Liquid, they're also seemingly going to, still partner with a team just like FlyQuest.
Here's my thing, is that I feel like we saw, Spawn mentions players like Yon and APA, in this, in this argument. And the argument that he's making, of course, is that, in the past, being an LCS affiliated team was very beneficial for players because you have the best possible promotion aspect, which at the time, that best possible scenario was just getting immediately subbed in to the LTA or LCS roster through your academy team. While that still could potentially exist, now there's a more direct line for promotion. But I think my agreement, my argument is kind of still there.
Yeah.
In that in the NACL 2023, the year that they brought in APA, there was also opportunities for them to take sort of risks. You remember that there was no risk for the academy/challengers teams to get demoted from the original structure of the NACL, with that obviously changing after all the format changes in the summer split. But that meant that potentially these teams could take more risks and build more development-focused rosters because they did not have the ability to demote. And I think that could have been why, a team like TL was more willing to, invest in a player like APA potentially and have him, of course, rise through the ranks. I think his argument is probably the same as you're mentioning, Hawk, in that they talked to some of these players, and all of them kind of said that they'd rather probably play with an independent team, which I understand.
Which doesn't surprise me, honestly, knowing players, like, as much as I'm sitting here being like, oh, job security, slightly better pay, a lot of these guys are chasing a dream, and I kind of get that, so. And
they'd rather have the dream be in their own hands rather than
they believe in themselves.
Some GM's hands.
And
which, again, makes sense.
I don't blame them. I can see that.
And I think the other argument, real quick, in favor of Spawn and PapaSmithy and these people and these LCS orgs is that with the arguments that we were making, you could say, oh yeah, you could just make a full roster of rookies and whatever, and that could just be your development team. You can turn them into prospects. But I think most likely the idea of partnering with an NACL team is more appealing to them because of the fact that you can get some better players potentially that could sub into your LTA team.
That's definitely true. So. And it's probably, less overhead for the suits in charge as well. So I kind of get
also
that.
True, but I feel like we all knew that coming in and we're trying to find the other reasons.
I think at the end of the day, my overall thoughts, oh, there goes my camera. Wow, I look fantastic. Oh my God. I think my overall thoughts on this situation, and then we can probably keep moving, is like, I feel like I'm not happy about it, but I understand and I'm not entirely surprised. It's fine at this point.
My take is, could these changes overall hurt the appeal for an LCS org a little bit to have this development team, but it does hurt the good of the region overall to not have these teams being a part of the system. So it would be a little bit more of like charity work potentially, which at the end of the day, these are still businesses that still have to put their best foot forward. You could make the argument that giving to the ecosystem allows you to get stuff back in return, but we know that that's always a very sensitive line to kind of toe. But I am excited to see if these organizations will be partnering with teams and what that exactly looks like. Do you have any guesses on like where they're gonna go? Are we gonna see like a Team Liquid Fear situation, or maybe Supernova's a free agent right now because NRG?
Yeah, I think Supernova, CCG, and Fear are probably the obvious choices, right? Like.
As long as Blue Water and C9 are kind of keeping their partnership.
Blue Water and C9 should be running it back, which I think they've maybe already announced. And then the universities don't make sense. And then I think Dragonsteel also does not really... I'm sorry, Luminosity also does not really make sense. So, yeah, it's probably one of those three. Just quickly to go through the affiliate thing. So this shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. You can still be affiliated with a team, which is obviously going to happen. But once you promote in, you need to partner with some other business entity. You can't still, Blue Otter C9 cannot compete in the LTA against C9. I think that makes perfect sense. Similarly, collegiate teams can compete in tier two, but if they promote into tier one, they must partner with some sort of business backing to make sure.
Well, I think it actually says that teams must be operated by a business entity upon qualification into tier two. So every NACL team is going to have their own like kind of business behind it.
But it just they basically Riot wants whoever qualifies to tier one to actually play
on their own
tier one and to be a like not fuck over their players, which just all makes sense. This shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. Grapes, do you have any quick thoughts on this before we just keep moving?
Yeah, we had our Tony Top situation where it was like a 5 friends and a dream team.
Right.
They made it. They qualified in the NACL.
That would be a
and
disaster
then they were unable
if it
to find
happened
a
at
partner.
the tier one level.
Definitely. And so I don't think that's going to happen. Well, that's not going to happen obviously because that is going to have to happen at the tier 2 level whenever these organizations do eventually qualify into the NACL first. My theory is that there will be orgs kind of hanging around if they didn't qualify or something like that, that could be ready to pick up these players and put them in under their banner as a sponsor. I imagine that the prospect of being in the LTA, or having the opportunity to be in the LTA is going to be pretty enticing for them.
I wonder if we'll actually see a lot of orgs not pick up a team for the qualifier tournament and then instead just pick up a roster that qualifies, if that makes sense. And we might see TikTok Tony Top play in the qualifier tournament, and then they become, whatever, in tier 2. I also am going to go on record, and I'm going to make a bet that I think we see another Tony Top situation at the tier 2 level. I think there will be a team that promotes and some shenanigans happen and they don't find something.
That sucks.
But
I really hope that doesn't happen.
I do think
I could see it.
I really hope it doesn't happen as well. And I will say, for as much as it would suck, better at the tier 2 level than at the tier 1 level. If whoever promotes into the LTA decides not to play or can't play for some reason, that would be a huge disaster and a blow to the region. So I think this completely makes sense on Riot's end.
Yep.
And it's better for the players. So
yeah. Last thing on this article is that it just goes through the schedule. It says that split 1 will happen during split 2, as you said. You could see the disparity right there in the numbers.
I absolutely hate it. Why could they not just it's fine.
And the promotion tournament in October. So I feel like there's not too much to go through just with the schedule. So generally, takeaways are that I think that there are a lot of good things in here. A lot of things that we're still waiting to see, namely what this qualifier tournament is going to look like, what the partnerships with LTA teams and the NACL teams are going to look like. But overall, I'm pretty excited. Overall, I'm pretty excited for what 2025 can bring.
I feel like Riot actually did a really good job of translating and preserving the tier 2 ecosystem despite downsizing at the tier 1 level. I'm actually very impressed at how generally on board with all of this I am. I don't know if you agree with that, Grapes, but I'm overall pretty happy because our ecosystem is seemingly going to be pretty well preserved and hopefully can continue to grow under this new prospect of promotion at the tier 1 level.
Yeah, I definitely want to see what the qualifiers look like, specifically the qualifiers that are going to be happening during the regular season of the NACL.
Right.
This opening qualifier, is going to be hype.
What is
this? It's going to be exciting. But yeah, what do those look like?
What are these going to look like?
We noticed that they're definitely shorter, smaller bars than the split 1, split 2s, which implies, in my opinion, that we're going to see probably a shorter length
we have
of a qualifier.
Speculated already off camera that this might be, how we had 2 tournaments per split. We might only have 1. Grapes and I are hoping that maybe we could see double elim top 8 if it's only 1 tournament. That way it's a little bit more hype. But that is at least where our guess lies. Either that, Grapes, or it's just completely different. But it's probably only 1 tournament in tier 3 per split if I had to guess.
Yeah, that's my guess. The way that they've said tournament, the way that it doesn't even say tier 3 underneath here, it just says qualifier. Means we're probably going to get something different. Interested to see what it looks like. I'm not entirely sure how I feel, but I do think that there are areas for the qualifier ecosystem to improve. I think there's also definitely ways for it to get worse. So we'll see what exactly that announcement looks like as we get closer to the start of 2025.
But dude, this asterisk qualifier is gonna be so fucking hype. That's gonna be awesome.
It will
Stay
be.
tuned.
That's the big takeaway here.
Yeah.
And we'll leave it at that as we wrap up this episode. Just like a big giant React talk, but I think we got a lot of insight here from this article.
Yeah, hang on. Should we pose for the thumbnail or
yeah. I'll grab one. I'll grab one for you.
There you go. That's
here.
For the thumbnail.
Do you want to do one looking to the side?
Oh yeah.
That way you can be looking at the news. Awesome.
Okay.
All right. That will be the thumbnail.
There you go.
I might have asked you to do that off the podcast, but now you guys get to see how the movie magic is made.
Dude, there it is. Yeah. Overall, good stuff. I don't think we really have too much else. I'm hoping everyone out there is as excited about the Tier 2, Tier 3 season as we are, because Salty Runback, hopefully, is not going anywhere. We definitely have big plans for 2025, just like hopefully a lot of you all do as well. Make sure you stay tuned rest of this week. We're going to have more content coming out, but that's going to do it for today. We wanted to try something a little different, a little bit of a reaction video for you all, just sort of us talking a little bit less structure off the cuff. If you think these changes suck, if you're happy that FlyQuest and TL dropped out of challengers, if you're mad that Wet Ass Pussy Esports is the only one in LATAM South Tier 2, you can take all of what we said with a grain of salt. Make sure you follow us on all of our social media at Hawkcast, at Speedy Grapes, at Salty Runback Pod. And we'll see you all in the next one.